Hey there, I'm Emily, host of the 3315 Hear the Blessed, the show where we talk about being a young Christian in crazy times. Hey there, ladies and gents, welcome back to another episode. Today's topic is on worship and what it is exactly. As for what it is, I'm sure we all have a pretty good idea, right? It's worshiping the one true God. It's giving him the praise, honor, and reverence meant for God and God alone. It is not just another part of being a Christian, it is one of the most essential parts. As Psalm 29 verses 1 through 2 says, "Honor the Lord, you heavenly beings. Honor the Lord for his glory and strength." Now, I bet one of the first things that comes to mind when I say worship is probably church, right? Going to church, listening to a sermon, singing the songs, praying, and all that. That is all good stuff, and you are right, but those are not the only ways. First of all, you shouldn't only worship when you go to church, whether that is on Saturday or Sunday that you go, but it should be every day. After all, the Jews and early Christians had all kinds of celebrations, such as the Passover and the Lord's Supper, and when Jesus in the New Testament goes off by himself to pray on several different occasions, it's never mentioned he did it on a specific day. It's clearly implied that it's just a common thing that he did, and I bet he even prayed daily. One can have specific times when you do that, like praying before a meal or when a pastor prays at the start and end of a church service. But don't limit yourself. God is the same every day. He hears you every day. You can give him praise anywhere. Remember what Jesus says about prayer in Matthew 6, verse 6. "But when you pray, go away by yourself, shut the door behind you, and pray to your Father in private. Then your Father who sees everything will reward you." Jesus doesn't say go out to some big fancy party or just to go out in public where everyone can see you. He says in verse 5, that's what hypocrites do, and that's all the reward they will get. God doesn't want some big fancy mess where you are praying to him. He wants a close private conversation. He wants it just between you and him. Of course, that's not saying you can't pray with others. Just don't make it some big thing that's just for show. Make it about it giving praise to God, not showing off that you're all holier than all others. Of course, that's not to say you can't make a big show of it or have some sort of celebration. As I said before, in the Bible, there's all kinds of celebrations that are not condemned, but there are instructions given on how to go about it correctly. As Psalm 149 verse 3 says, "Praise his name with dancing, accompanied by tambourine and harp." Even King David, the man after God's own heart, did this, as according to 2 Samuel 6, verse 14. "And David danced before the Lord with all his might, wearing a priestly garment." For context, Israel had gotten the Ark of the Covenant back and were celebrating as they were taking it back to their lands. How could David not be celebrating? And he didn't just do a little dance, he danced with all his might. He was overjoyed and dancing for the Lord. And there are other ways to worship God outside of just these things. Look at the Psalms. So many of them are written as praises to God to pass down on to others. You can worship through your actions, such as reading the Bible, spreading the word to others, following the 10 Commandments, anything that brings glory to God. Fasting is another great way. If you don't know what that is, fasting is a period of time where you abstain from something, usually food, but it can be other things to focus more on the things of God. And this does strengthen your relationship with God. As James 4 verse 8 says, "Come close to God, and God will come close to you." Worship brings us closer to God. It benefits you in that way and helps strengthen your relationship with him. Now then, before we go, I want to make it clear I'm not telling you how to worship God, just pointing out a couple different ways it can be done properly according to the Bible. I just want to also point out ways that we don't always talk about, and I think it's beautiful that there's a multitude of ways. This podcast is not trying to be a replacement for what God says or a perfect source of understanding on how to be a Christian. I am not perfect. I was born a sinner just like everyone else. Every day brings new challenges and hurdles to jump in my Christian life, but thanks to God, it's possible. The point of this podcast is to just talk about these topics and encourage others to get in the Word and learn for themselves, to form a relationship with God themselves. Thanks for joining me today on another episode. Hope you liked it. If you have any questions or would like to request a topic for me to talk about, message me on Instagram at 33_15_ here to bless, or you can send me a comment on YouTube or even DM me on Tumblr, as I now have a Tumblr too. God bless you.